Okay, hello everyone. Today we'll be we are in essentially a Firebase workshop. We're going to be showing you a couple of features that you could use whenever you decide to integrate Firebase into your project. And of course, this is a part of like one of the series that's supposed to help prepare you for the hackathon, right? So if you're not too familiar with what Firebase is, please pay attention so that once you go to the hackathon, you can like integrate it into your project and help things just go smoothly, right? Okay.
All right, well, hi everybody, I'm Sid.
I'm Belinda.
I'm Hector.
We'll be doing the back end Firebase workshop.
Okay, so what are databases? So databases are essentially a collection of structured information stored in a computer system. So it's like, okay, that's kind of mouthful. I'm still not too familiar with what databases are. You can think about it as something like this. Like let's say UTRGV here, we have a database filled with all the student emails, all the student IDs, so on and so forth. So the UTRGV student database is going to have email and student ID and name, right? And then it's going to have email, blah, blah, right, at utrgv.edu, 1, 2, 3, as the student ID, and then blah as like the name, right? And then it's going to be filled with all different variations of data. So it's going to have a bunch of different emails, student IDs, names, and they're all paired together. So this is essentially what a database is, right? And it's used to structure, it uses a structured query language. So if anyone's familiar with SQL, probably not, but SQL is the most commonly used thing to like help structure databases. And you have to learn like all these different commands and stuff. And it's usually controlled by a database management system or DBMS. So this is essentially what a database is. It's just, you can think about it like this big old box that's holding all these data together. Okay, so what is Firebase? So Firebase essentially helps developers build, manage, and grow applications more easily. And no programming is needed for Firebase because for like an actual database using SQL and stuff, you have to program the entire thing. And Firebase is just like, okay, we're going to give you like this website that has like the thing. We don't need to program it. We just have to call it within our project, call it in the functions that we need. But we don't have to code up this database. And the services are provided to Android, iOS, web, and Unity. So you can use it in a wide array of projects. And it uses NoSQL for the database. So it doesn't use tabular relationships in data modeling. Sorry. So yeah, that's essentially what Firebase is. Are there currently any questions as to what Firebase is? No? Absolutely.
Okay, so the key features of Firebase are beginner-friendly setup. With a user-friendly setup, so like you were saying, you don't have to code anything pretty much. You just know where you're calling it. Normally for this, you have to code every statement calling it. Here it's kind of mainly based off the website, so it'll just you're able to like click a button and it'll tell you how to call it from the website, and then you can integrate that into your code. Cloud functions, like she was saying, a lot of it's stored through the web, and you can use Google Cloud functions. That way, if you need bigger databases or you need to expand, you're able to fairly easily. I believe it does it automatically. It's depending on how many inputs you get. like it says, most things can be added through Firebase. You can just click a button and it'll give you the option to add things. And there's plenty of documentation. If you have an error, there's more than likely a solution to that error on Firebase itself. If not, plenty of people use it, so it's on like Stack Overflow, all the popular websites.
Also, just a few recap of what Firebase is and what it offers. It offers more than 20 products, and the few ones that we're gonna cover are, as you can see here, you could categorize it in 3 parts: building better apps, improving app quality, and user engagement. So for the ones that we're gonna use in this project, it's gonna be authorization, Firestore, hosting, and real-time storage. Essentially, authorization, it offers information as a service and also rules that you could modify depending on what you want to do. So your SDQ code isn't copied and people can plug in whatever they want. And for Firestore and storage, the main difference is that Firestore stores SQL information, so data, just essentially data, and storage is more like media, and it's scalable, so it grows as it goes, and you don't pay a definite pay. So if you just spend $1, that's all you're gonna pay. It's pay as you go, basically. And for hosting, it's as simple as just inputting a line of command in your terminal. Yep.
So why is Firebase important? It's very scalable. For like a database, you would have to do, like I said, every entry. Here you can just make a command to it, and it'll just infinitely scale on the website side, like on Firebase, Firestore. Very user friendly. There's little code that you actually need. You need to know how to call it, and the website kind of gives you that. It gives you that almost entirely. Authentication, it's a lot simpler through here than it would be like if you made it yourself.
Yes, because like with authentication, you have to think about like, oh, like can people like hack into it? Or is like the encryption that I use like weak and stuff like that. And Firebase, you don't have to worry about that. Firebase, like throw all those worries out the window. Just call like our authentication feature within your application, and you can authenticate users. Authenticating meaning like you can sign in, you can sign out, like no worries, and like the user's gonna have their account there and like all their stuff inside their accounts.
Because it's very hard to make an authentication on your own with foolproof. Some classes have you practice it, but I remember for software one, it was like you were constantly the professor constantly telling me like this is how your authentication can be broken. So it's nice that Firebase handles this for you, and it has real-time updates. It has both Firestore and a storage. And with storage, you can update in real time. So it'll, while you're running the code, you're able to put new inputs in and get those inputs out. Whereas something like SQL, you would have to refresh sometimes, depending on how many you put in.
All right, as for the CRUD operations, for SQL, you have mainly more what's called statements, from, and then for SQL is more functions passed by JSON. So you don't really have to type as much. You just add the function and it will call or whatever you want from the database. And if you want to do listen for real time updates, you could just use the on function for create. And as for read, it's just get function, and update is going to be update, delete, delete. It's very straightforward. And that's why Firebase is super easy and flexible, because you do not code that much, you just plug it in there. And the main difference between SQL and NoSQL is the syntax. So SQL statements, NoSQL functions. All right, we're gonna get you all started with the setup, but does everybody have React installed in their laptops? Can you raise your hands if you do? Nobody.
It's okay.
It's really helpful.
At the end, for the sake of like saving time right now, you can't install React on like everyone's personal laptop. So it's pretty simple. You can just look up a tutorial on how to install React. So that's the software that we use to create our project that we're going to demo at the end. But for right now, you can just follow along with the steps on like how to create a project, and then you can carry on, like look at our slides, and you'll be able to create the project. I'm also going to share our GitHub repo, so you can go ahead and like clone it and test it however you want. So for the setup, everyone go to like console.firebase.com on their personal devices. And when you go there, you see that like you have the ability to be able to create new projects and stuff. And the purpose of this is where all like your database, your authentication, your real-time storage, cloud vision, all that, all those features are available when you create a new project. You can think about it like it's all stored into like these little boxes and stuff, right? And then you have the option to like get authentication. So as we can see, one is already made here, demo. But you could also like add a project here and create a new one. So you would go into console.google Firebase, the website that was on the slide before, and you go to this page here to create a new project. And that project, it's going to give you like a little bit of code that you put into your actual project, and that's how the database and all the other features get integrated into your project. That's how it knows, like, okay, like all this information, I'm going to store it online in Firebase in this little block, in this little section of the internet, right?
The repo that we shared is going to be a recipe app, so that's what you can name it. And when you name it, you could accept analytics. Although we're not going to use them, but it's good to have them. And as for the repo, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but you could just copy the link and add it through your terminal. So you open your terminal and you make a CD and then 2 slashes, and you add the where you want to share it.
The folder you would like to store it in, and then you paste the repo.
For
We could show
example,
that, right?
yes, for example, here, like, let's say we want to go to the repo, which is here. So you would go to the repo and you go to this part that says code here, and then you copy. And as you can see, this is an HTTPS. This is essentially the website link to the repo. That's also what we shared. And you can go ahead and clone that in your own device. If you have like VS Code installed and you have Git installed, you can go ahead and do this, something like Git clone, and then you copy in the link. And then once you do this and you hit enter, it's going to clone our repository, the code that we made, into your device, right? And you'll be able to manipulate it the way you want.
Just make sure that you get that new path.
Yes, and just like some precursors for this, if you want to be able to do this and manipulate the code the way you want, you'll need to have VS Code installed or another code editor, an IDE of some sort. An IDE. And then you would also have to have a GitHub account. As well as have Git installed to be able to do this sort of Git command. Okay. So I know it's kind of like, oh, we need to do all this and this and this. But once you do it, that's it. Like once you have an IDE installed, like VS Code, once you make your GitHub account, you install Git, like you're good to go. And we'll also share like further resources after the workshop. But right now it's just a little bit condensed for the sake of time, you know, because we don't want to keep you here for like 3 hours, right? I'm like, okay, let's install this, let's do that, right?
VS Code also has a shortcut that allows you to just click a button and paste, and it'll do it for you. I don't know if it's an extension, but like here, you could just click clone, and it'll do it for you. It'll pop up at the top.
Oh, yes, but you still need Git to be able to do the Git commands. Yes. Don't
Don't clone anything.
clone it, you'll break it. Okay, so moving on. So then the setup.
And when you when you first pop into the console, you're gonna see Firebase. You're gonna see actually, let me show you.
Yes, and the console, that's the word for where like all of like the Firebase projects and stuff live in. It's called the Firebase console. And most of the times if you're having errors, it'll like ChatGPT or wherever you're looking, it'll be like, oh, like go check your Firebase console. Make sure that everything in there is like verified and enabled the way you want to. All the stuff that you want to add, it's enabled and like active in there. So the Firebase console. Again, the website that we put there in the slides, console.firebase.google.com.
So this is how it's gonna be initially. This is where you create your project. You're gonna name it.
And again, you can name it whatever you want, right? It's your project.
You could do default account, which is the one that you logged in with. And this is gonna create your project.
Like project.
It's Firebase, the Firebase project.
Yes,
And it's
yeah.
gonna contain all that.
it'll make like the database. Like essentially what it's gonna do, it's gonna like give you like all the features. You know how we had like that slide that like, oh, for build better apps, you can have authentication, database, all those different stuff. Once you create this, like that project, it's gonna open up like the database and stuff, like here.
And this is where we were at the slides.
Like here, you first choose like, is it a web application, an Android application, iOS, and there's also Flutter and Unity. Flutter being like for mobile development, specifically in Dart, and Unity being for like games and stuff. But since ours was like a web app, we put web. And then we have to give it a little name.
And this is, make sure to check out for hosting, because that's gonna allow you to just use the one command in the terminal and
Yeah,
be able to
to
host
be
it.
able to like deploy your app and like make it like a full functioning thing in the world. And again, we're doing this because we have to do this for our own project, but when you copy our repo and want to like mess with the code on your own, you have to create your own Firebase like console area.
Once you're here, make sure to install Firebase in your terminal, whether you're using Visual Code.
VS Code?
VS Code.
You run like this little command to install Firebase. Hold on.
This one.
You run this command, so npm install Firebase. But again, this is just, you only run this command in your terminal. It's only gonna work if you have Node.js and React installed on your laptop, right? That's why we're running it, and because this is a web application, okay? And then this is the little bit of code that we were talking about earlier that you're gonna add into your project. As you can see here, it has the API key, authentication domain, project ID, all this stuff. I know we probably all heard of like API keys, and that's something that's very specific to your project. That like, if people get a hold of that, like, they can go into like their database and manipulate it themselves. So your API key is like very, very important, especially if you're working with very valuable data. Ours, we just put it on the repo just so you can have an example out there. And there's like nothing important on the repo. There's no really important information. But when you're working with like really important information, you want to keep your API key hidden for here. But this is just an example, right? Of like what you would add into your code. And you can find like this snippet in the repo under firebase.config.js.
So you open the repo, you go here, you go under sources, and which one?
Firebase.config.js.
And you just copy and paste what you just see here.
Whatever like little bit of code that you get inside your Firebase console when you create a new project in your Firebase console, that's the code that you're gonna paste in there. Like the API key and all that stuff. Because remember, it's unique to you. If you paste this one in and try to like work with it, like you're not gonna have access because it's to my Firebase console. You need to work it in yours, which is why like
you create a new project and you add in that code.
The next step would be to install your Firebase tools for you to be able to use all those programs. So npm install -g Firebase -tools. And this would be done with in whichever environment you choose. So yes, or
Are there any questions so far? Like, is anyone lost? Like, you don't have to follow exactly right now, but since being recorded, you will have access to it later. I will provide more detailed instructions. But is anyone currently confused on anything?
There the model, they used to add like application to not have to worry about things like that.
Yeah.
So comparing it to, is it compared model?
This, I know people have like their gripes with like Firebase console. MongoDB, that's more if you want to work with like creating like your own database, like that works better with like when you're working with like SQL and stuff. But this one, it's like very beginner friendly. As we can see, it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna create this and like push all these buttons and then just, it's almost just like push and plug. I'm gonna plug in like the little code snippet that it gives me into my project, and then I'm just gonna call it, be like, I want an authentication here, so put it right here. And then MongoDB, it gets a little bit more complex when you add it into projects, and like with authentication, it doesn't do like the automatic encryption and stuff like how Firebase does. on MongoDB.
Alright. And after you've initialized Firebase, your next step would be to install Firestore for this particular project. It depends on what you're doing, but for us, the website is gonna need Firestore. And it's gonna be the same process as initializing Firebase. So you go to your dashboard and you're gonna scroll down to the drop-down menu. And you're gonna pick a specific word.
It's in here.
You could just continue to content.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, under build is where you're gonna see all the products that Firebase offers. And one of them is gonna be Firestore. So you're gonna click on it and do the same processes.
And it has build, run, analytics here, because you can also have like analytics and stuff. Like, let's say, I don't know, you're using it for like your YouTube channel and you want like real-time analytics and stuff. Those are also services offered by Firebase. But right now we're just going over build, like some features in build, because we want to prepare you for like, okay, how am I going to integrate it into my own like personal project and stuff. But Firebase has a lot of different features available. So analytics, run, as we can see, app distribution and stuff. But we're just working with build today. We're going to be working with authentication. So you would click it and it would add it here. Yeah. So with like authentication, that's one of the features that we're going to add into the project that we do today. So we'll go ahead and like get started, right? And then in here, as you can see, you know, like sometimes when you sign into accounts, it's like, oh, you can also just, instead of actually putting in your email and password, you can input like Google. You can log in with your Google account, your Facebook account, all whatever. More than likely, every time you see that company or that product, it's probably using Firebase, right? So we can see all these different providers that are here. And today, since it's just very like bare bones, we're just going to work with email and password. But it's also just as simple to add in like, okay, I want to be able to log in my users with Google accounts or Facebook accounts or whatever, right? But for today, it's just email and password. You would go in and enable it, right? Yes. Enable that one. Save. And as you can see, we have the ability to be able to authenticate with email and password. And of course, if you wanted to add new stuff, you would just go to add new provider and you could add in like Google as a sign-in. But we're not going to do that today, so. And then as we can see here under authentication, there's like this users portion, templates, usage, all this stuff. A big part that we're going to focus on is here on users. Because as we can see, like in that database that I drew up on the board,
that has like the emails, the student IDs, and as well as like the names, it has here like the identifier. And we enabled email and password, right? So the identifier is going to be the email. And then we have like the providers. That's going to be like a little key given to like each specific account. And then it's going to be created. So it's going to give like the day the account was created, signed in. So like when was the last time that the person that email signed in to their account? And then of course, user UID. So just like another specific number given to the identifier to be able to track like any data associated with their account that we're wanting to keep track of. But yeah, this is authentication. But as we can see, it was just a click of a couple of buttons, right? To add in like this authentication method into our Firebase console, which we will then like call inside our project to be able to actually use stuff. And like, okay, when like someone tries to sign in, it's gonna be sent here, right? Mhm.
And for Fire,
Mhm. Oh, and that's the configuration. And of course, here's just configuration, what we touched upon earlier. So you go to where your project is, you run the command that you need to, and then of course you just plug in this code into your project, right, as necessary.
for Fire Store, where you store the SQL. But the one main thing about this is that when you create the database, you want to make it test mode and check that it's native. Because if it's a data, I believe it's data store, you're gonna go out of the console into another tab, and it's not gonna allow you to do certain things in the code. For example, here for build, you're gonna create a database, and this is gonna be your ID.
Just get the, oh, just exit out of it. Refresh it. Let's go and try it again. That's because you can't see it, because here. Okay, just move this one first. Drop that. Next.
The test mode, the test mode is not very safe, but just for this project, we're gonna use it. So it gives you 30 days for anybody to edit it and view it and move anything.
And
So-
anytime that you want, you could always move it to production mode once you're ready to like publish your application for wider audiences and stuff.
And you could do authentication, Firestore, and also storage has this feature, which is the rules, and you could modify it based on your goals. So for example, authentication, if you want certain users to just access their own profiles, that's where you're going to write that code.
Or for example, like let's say like in a school, there's like people who have like their student accounts, right? And there's people with admin accounts, and there's people with teacher accounts and all that stuff. You would incorporate that in your rules section here. And then it's the same thing for like any other feature that we have. We have certain rules because it's like, okay, I only want this and this and this to happen. And then as we can see here, this one, it just says, allow read and write if request time is less than timestamp. So this is just allowing anything to be readable or writable, because again, we're just like working with like this little project for this workshop. So that's why the request time being right now, it's less than like the time that they give you. So they only give you like 30 days to be able to work in like this test mode, given this rule, right? We're only given 30 days because that's what the rule is saying, you know? And it only keeps it for like 30 days because it wants it to
be secure. It doesn't want your data to get like corrupted and stuff. But that's essentially what these rules are saying. They're just establishing like different rules that you want for your project for that feature, right?
Anyone lost?
So the data is live on Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can API to call it.
Yes. Yeah, you just like call it within your project, initialize it as a variable, and then like use that in your code.
It uses the API key that it gave you from the thing.
Mhm.
When you get this snippet of code.
Not
That's
that-
the rules.
These are the rules. Yeah.
That's where you can modify them.
Mhm.
And the things, the last thing is hosting. So it's just gonna be this simple command, you write it in your terminal and it's gonna automatically host it. So no hassle at all.
Yeah.
Well, these are the steps and the features that we're gonna use. So we're gonna start showing the actual code so you can see where everything goes.
Yes. Okay. Y'all like my little octopus? Okay. All right, let's see. Let's just like open up like this code. So when you like copy the repository onto your machine, you're probably gonna put it in like some folder. I put it in this folder, Frontera Des Firebase Workshop, because that's what I wanted to put it in. But when you're gonna copy it, you're gonna get a folder, and then inside is gonna be all the code, right? We don't have to worry about the node modules right now, or ever. Just not for this workshop, not right now. What we're gonna be mainly concerned with is the code inside the folder source, or SRC, right? So as we can see, we have this app.js folder. And essentially what's inside here is the flow of the actual application. So as we can see here inside like our little router dividers, we have like the link to the sign-in page, the link to the sign-up page, because you have to think about like, okay, someone's gonna wanna log into their account, or someone who's never like had this sort of account is gonna wanna sign up. So you wanna have your sign-in and your sign-up page, right? And that's what's linking here. And then you want to be able to have a button for like people to sign out, because you know you don't want to have like that account just signed in all the time. And then of course we have our homepage as well. You know, the actual meat of our project. Like, what's the point of this project? Okay, you can sign in, you can sign out, but what are we actually doing inside, right? And that's where we have our home.js file. And inside this file, it's essentially just the recipe app. And the recipe app, essentially what it does is like, okay, you're gonna enter your credentials, log into your application, and you're gonna be able to log recipes, right? It's something super simple. So you're gonna be able to log what's the recipe name, what are the ingredients, the instructions to get there, and it's all gonna be stored inside a database, on your Firebase console, right? In Firestore, yes. In Firestore. And then here's where we have Firebase .config file. So this is the configuration, the API key, you know, to make it specific to the authentication feature inside my Firebase console. You'll have to, again, the steps that we went over in the beginning, do it for your own, to get your own API key and work with that data.
So this is the Firestore, bottom. This is with Cox 2 Firestore. So like, looks like a lot, but it's pretty simple. So this is just check. This is where you would call. These are functions. You would call them so that way it will call to Firebase or Firestore. You call it from like app or home. And what it's doing is like add, you're just making one, you're just adding in a new one to Firestore. Get, you're looking for a specific one, it'll just get it and return it. This is specific to JavaScript and Firestore interacts kind of. So like, there was another way to do it called get docs that's provided, but it wasn't updating, so we had to use on snapshot. That way it would update in real time. Usually for most apps, you can use the get docs. For this one, since we wanted it to be real time, we use on snapshot. And it'll just, this will just get it and return it. Set. That one, it's just. Yeah, so set is, it's calling it. And it's changing it. Unsubscribe is if we're changing it or not. We'll just tell you if we're changing it or not. Update is if we decide we need to change it, it'll set whatever we're changing to the new data. And delete, just delete. So it'll just get rid of a piece of data and then update the database so that way it's not. We call all of these from either home.js or app.js. That way it's able to directly talk to Firestore and update the database. If we don't have it in through Firebase.
Because like normally with like a SQL database, you'd have it actually inside the code here. But again, Firebase allows it to be online. So we'd have to like let's say some data is being inputted, we'd actually have to go to our database and like check like, okay, like what data is in here, right? And of course, because we just created this one and it's not linked to any projects, it doesn't have any data stored currently.
But with like SQL, like you said, you would have to have some form of statement in there. So it would be like add this to this database specific thing. This one just you specify what you want, and that's what it'll look like.
Okay, so going into the authentication, just a little quick run through of the sign in and the sign up pages and the authentication details before we get into the demo of the project. So this is the sign in page. So when a user already has an account in the recipe app, they would just sign in. So as you can see here, we have this function sign in, and I call it later on in like the code for when we want to like have it in the structure. Because like, let's think about this, like, how would we create the website? It'd be like, okay, I want to get to the website. What's the first thing I want to see? I want to see a sign-in page. Okay, and then after I sign in, I want to see the recipe apps. So you would call the sign in and then go to the home page where the recipe is. Or if they don't have an account, give them the option to sign up and then go to the recipe accounts after they sign up. So essentially we have the sign in function here and we have the variables because we have to deal with emails, passwords, and of course navigate to be able to navigate to different pages, right? And then this little sign in function here, or sign in variable, essentially what it's doing is just like, okay, getting the email and the password and putting it inside a variable that we'll use later to like store it inside like our authentication database. We can think about it as an authentication database. And of course, you know, because I was debugging and stuff, logging any error codes that would come up. And then of course, this is all just the HTML for like the actual website to how it's going to look, right? So it's going to be inside a sign-in container, all this stuff. It's going to be bold font, this size, all that stuff. And then that's the same deal for the sign up page. It has the same exact thing, but now we're just tweaking the logic just a little bit. Because instead of it like being able to go directly to the recipe account, it has to check, okay, do they have an account? No? Okay, let's create an account. And then Yeah, but that's the only difference. But we just keep it separate just to keep it cleaner, right? And then here we have the authentication details, and this is just the logic that keeps track of like, okay, is this an authenticated user? Because they shouldn't have access to the recipe page if they haven't created an account, right? So this is essentially what that file is dealing with. And that's why it's a .jsx file, because it's just incorporating the functions, the HTML, and we can call it later on, just like a page, right? Let me open up the terminal. Gonna open up the terminal. Let me move this one. Okay. Oh, whoa. Where am I? Let me close that. Open up a new one. Why is the terminal so weird? Oh, did I? Oops. Go terminal. There we go. Okay. So, oh no, I have to see the, oh, there we go. First off, sorry, y'all, just a little bit of, not technical difficulties, but just need a CD into it. Right? Oh, like quotations.
Oh, it might have.
Did I? No, but that's because we're currently at the recipe out. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, am I gonna have to do it one by one? It's okay. And start. And this is the command to just get the project started. As we can see, React script starts, because that's what's in the script to be able to make it actually run. And then we're just gonna wait a little bit. Let's see how the UTRGV Wi-Fi is. It's okay, don't be scared of that. That just happens sometimes. Okay, and as we can see, whenever we run like a web application locally, it's gonna go to localhost 3000, right? Because we haven't deployed it, it's still in test mode, development mode. And as we can see, I just created like this little account earlier when actually coding. And I just saved it to my laptop just for the sake of ease. And we can go ahead and log in. And since it's already account, as we can see, I was just like messing around with stuff. I just put boil for like everything, the ingredients, the steps, everything's boil. But we can go ahead and add a recipe as well. Anyone want to give a suggestion for what we should add? Boil 2? All right. Let's keep it going. Description? 2 boil? Okay. What are the ingredients for boil 2? Boil? What else do we need for
Another
boil 2? Right? 'Cause another boil, because it's boil 2. And then what are the steps to make boil 2? Boil, right? Another step for boil, right? And no one say boil. I don't know. Let's just be silly. Right? And then we can submit it, right? And then, but we can also be serious with this, but as we can see, we didn't put any constraints for like, oh, it has to be like food, no numbers. You can go ahead and add that later, but we just wanted to give y'all like bare bones, make customize it to whatever you want it to be. But yeah, we can go ahead and add recipes here, and we can also remove them. But look, let's actually see these because these were actually added to the database. So let's go and check that. As we can see here, it was actually added under recipes inside the Cloud Store, Cloud Firestore. And as we can see, we have pollo, right? And then we have tu pollo as well, which we just added, right? And then we can go ahead and remove it as well. And then let's check our Firebase. Look, see, it disappeared, right? Now there's just pollo. Oh my gosh, I know, right? That's why it's real time. You don't have to even refresh it. It'll just do it on its own. And then we can remove this one. And look, it's not there anymore. Awesome, right? But that's like how quick and easy working with like Firestore can be. The Firestore database, very awesome, right? And now let's sign out. And like, okay, I already like made this account, but let's sign up with a different account. All right, someone throw an example email out there. Example at what should be the at gmail.com. Okay, let's keep it basic. No at live, no at Outlook, at Yahoo. No, not Yahoo.
Mail.
At Hotmail, you know, you can put all that stuff. And look, we can see that like I was messing around with it and like we have added like a bunch of different type of emails, right? This is my actual email here. All right. And now let's go ahead and enter a password, right? What should the password be? We can put as what? Foil? Okay, we need something a little longer, right? We need foil. Foil what? Brothers? All right, and let's just see here. Foil 2 brothers. Let's go. And then we're gonna sign up. I'm gonna save it here. It's okay, I can delete it later. And then we can add a recipe in here. Okay, guys, what should we add as a recipe? Pollo serrano? Okay. Okay, what is pollo serrano? Spicy chicken. Okay, what are the ingredients that we need for pollo serrano? We need serrano, yes. Thank you. I did not know that. And what else do we need for? We need salt on the chicken. Oh, pepper. Pepper. Salsa. Guys, we're missing the most important thing. We're missing pollo. Right? And then what are the steps to making pollo serrano? Put it together. Thank you, Joffred. Blend it. I don't know about y'all, I don't like blended chicken. All right, we're gonna submit this. And then let's go ahead and check our Firebase to make sure that like it's doing what it's supposed to. What was the email that we put in here again? Oh, example. This one we do have to refresh it because it's not real time. There we go. Let's see, example@gmail.com. And then let's check the database. Here we have spicy chicken as a description, ingredients, all that stuff. But yeah, pretty cool, right? Nothing to, look, we can remove it just to show. Look, see, nothing there anymore. But yeah, and then sign out. And then we go back here. And again, it has the email right here because I opted to save it to my browser, but it won't like save it. if you don't opt to save it in your browser. And yeah, of course, you can switch between the sign in. This is the sign in page. So if you click it, nothing's going to happen. But if you go to sign up, here you can create your account. But yeah, any questions on the demo? No?
So that's it. All right. So I'm gonna show you real quick how to use the storage one. So,
Oh, you want the
yeah, it's fine. Which one? Visual Code.
visual code? That one's my visual code. It's just that it's a folder.
All right. So for storage, you could just use the same API key that you had, but instead of grabbing everything, you're just gonna grab this little thing. The storage bucket is the storage product where everything's gonna be stored, and you could see it right here. For this one, you're gonna have to get started. And create a new file, call it storage. And in Firebase, you're just gonna copy that bucket storage. This one, what are this? Is this the one? Yeah. Yeah, continue to Discord. I don't have Discord open, you have to open Discord. Just search it, Discord. I can do it in the group chat. Oh my gosh, everyone's gonna see our group chat. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we could implement it to your code, but essentially it's just a file, 2 files where you have to input everything, but we'll let you know. There's pizza if y'all want some, so on your way out.
Let's put it at the center table. But yeah, any questions that you have, you can come up and ask.